You're listening to Well Informed Podcast, where conversations will empower you to live your best life. Welcome to Well Informed. I'm your host Nicole, and today we'll be talking about grief with the lovely Heather Higgins of Heather Higgins Grief Support. With grief being something that we all are faced with throughout our lifetime, I feel like this will be a really good conversation that will reach a lot of people. So, Heather, can you start by telling us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Heather, and I own Heather Higgins Grief Support. It was formerly Heather Higgins Coaching, and with that, I was offering counselling and life coaching. But just the way it sort of naturally transitioned into grief support. So I offer one-to-one support sessions for people who are going through bereavement. I offer monthly group support sessions for grief as well online. And I offer workshops for schools, organisations, workplaces, counsellors, coaches, anybody that wants to feel more confident in supporting people who are grieving. I can go and do workshops for them as well. And also I write about grief as well. So at the moment I'm partnered with Brains Magazine, which is like an online magazine for people who have their own business. And so I write articles about grief and supporting people through grief and helping people feel a bit less alone through grief. And also I've just published a book as well called Guided by Grief, which has been a bit of a journey as well. So the book is it's like a book of two halves. So it's like my personal story of loss and grief. So I lost both parents at a young age, as well as other family members. So it's sort of my story of loss. And then the other side of that is writing it from a counsellor's point of view. So helping people navigate grief and how coping with grief and sort of, helping them through that as well, ways to cope.
There you go. So you're a coach, an author, a teacher. It's fun. Lots of plates, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. A bit of everything. But I think the sort of overall goal is just to raise awareness about grief and just getting people talking about it, because like you said at the start, it's something we're all going to go through at some point in our life, but it still seems such an awkward thing for people to talk about, or it's really something that people want to avoid, whereas I'm like, we're all going to go through it. So just like raising awareness and encouraging conversations around grief, I think is really important.
It can be a bit taboo, and I think you're right, it is because people feel quite awkward, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like if a loved one or a friend is grieving, you kind of don't know how to approach that. Like, so, how are you? And then after that, you don't really know what to say.
Yeah, because they'll say I'm fine when you know they're not fine, or they'll say I'm okay when you know they're not okay.
Yeah, and it's at the same time as well, like we know that we're going to face grief at some point. It's not really something you can prepare for either, because you just don't know how it's going to feel or affect you when you're faced with it, when you're in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a personal thing as well. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, and I think that's so hard, because I think when clients come to me, it's almost like they have that vision of, okay, so my grief's going to be fixed or my grief's going to be taken away after this, but it's not like that. Or you're going to tell me how to grieve, you're going to tell me how to get over this, but there is no, I suppose, getting over it. It's just more learning how to live with it, really, going forward.
Yeah. Like a new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's something I get asked all the time. When's this going to go away? When am I going to feel back to normal? It's like, well, what is normal after a bereavement? Life is probably going to look different now, and I suppose that's learning to sort of navigate that as well is like a difficult thing on top of the bereavement itself. So it's a big thing, that people go through. It really is.
It's massive. It is. It truly is. It completely alters your life, doesn't it? When you lose somebody that you love so much.
Yeah.
And especially with somebody that you spend a lot of time with as well.
Yeah.
So I was saying like how you can't actually prepare for grief, and you're saying how it's different for everybody. It's so personal. But what are some of the kind of most common things that people are faced with when they're bereaved? What
So I guess,
emotions?
yeah, so thinking about the emotions, so obviously when people think about grief, the first thing they think about is, you know, sadness and crying, and absolutely it's a huge part of it. It's a sad thing. But there's so many more emotions sort of layered on top of that as well. So big things I notice with clients is anger, for example, you know, feeling angry at themselves, feeling angry at the world, at God, at the universe, at the person that's passed away sometimes, angry at doctors and nurses. And, you know, anger can be a really, really heavy emotion anyway, but pairing that with grief, I think, can be a really big thing. Yeah, so it's sadness, anger, guilt is another big one that clients come with as well, feeling guilty, you know, is there something I could have done, something I could have said, like, or wishing they could have done something differently, like that's a really big one as well. Frustration, numbness is a big one as well, just not wanting to acknowledge it or not wanting to accept what's happened. And it's so complex as well, there's so many different emotions. Sometimes relief as well, you know, maybe somebody's relieved that the person that's passed away is maybe not suffering anymore, they're not in pain, you know, so they feel that relief. And then all these things can be so confusing and so overwhelming, I think, for people that are going through loss.
You're saying about relief, like maybe they've been anticipating it for a while and the anticipation's actually just been troubling them so much that they're like, do you know what, that's it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's all okay. You know, all the emotions and feelings and thoughts that people experience during grief, it's all okay. It's all normal. I feel like clients say that to me all the time. Is this normal to feel this way? Is this normal to act this way? And I'm like, absolutely. You know, it's all part of the process, you know. And I think by raising awareness on social media and through articles and things like that, just seeing the amount of people that resonate with that is so interesting for me, because I think going through grief, it can feel really lonely. We feel like we're the only person in the world that feels that way or is experiencing that, but actually seeing people like connecting with each other in the comments under posts and things like that and going, oh, thank God I'm not the only one that feels like this, or, you know, it's amazing to see people like connecting over that and feeling that sort of sense of like, okay, yeah, that is normal, you know, to experience this.
They feel validated.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I guess like a lot of people would probably ask you as well, like, how long does this last? How long does grief last? But I guess it's not something that's ever going to go away, is it? It's just something, like you said, that you learn to live with.
Yeah, for sure. There's no timeline for grief. And I think for a lot of people that's really frustrating, because again, you know, they're coming to you and saying, when am I going to feel normal again? When will I feel okay? When will this pain go away? But there is no timeline for grief. It really is a case of learning to carry it, you know, learning to carry it forward, and it's a part of you, you know. Like my dad passed away 25 years ago, so that's a grief that we still carry, but it looks really different now than what it did when I was in my 20s or when I was in my teens, or, you know, when it first happened when I was 9. You know, it sort of changes over time, I guess. And it's such a personal thing as well, you know, when somebody wants to know when will I feel okay again, you know, I can't answer that. It's such a personal journey for people, isn't it? Like going through that. And there's so much to take into account for that as well. So like people's relationships and their experiences and, you know, their resilience, I guess, and like their coping strategies and things like that. And yeah, there's so much to take into account, I think, when you're grieving, to help manage it, I think.
And I guess like they're not just wanting the grief to end, it's maybe just that they're finding it hard to cope with the emotions. And some people feel physical pain.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And that's normal too.
Yeah, that's so normal. And I think a lot of that can come from like repressed emotions and things like that as well. Sort of not acknowledging the loss or not processing it, not dealing with it, sort of pushing it to the back of our mind. And, you know, it can then show up in other ways. So it might show up as anxiety, or it might show up in like physical health symptoms. You know, there's there's just so many layers of it, you know, that people don't think about,
Yeah.
you know, that can affect them.
It's amazing how not feeling your emotions when they're ready to rise and come through can actually present itself in like
Yeah, physically.
an ailment,
Yeah.
a physical ailment. So that's all the kind of emotions that we would be feeling if we were to be faced with grief, and there's no right order in what way they're going to come or what you're going to feel first or how long they're going to last. But that's some of what you could expect if you're somebody that's not been faced with this before, or maybe you're supporting somebody that is in this just now. What are the kind of early stages like? For some people can't do anything. It can incapacitate people.
Yeah.
So how would we support somebody that's in that stage of their grief to try and just get them up, get them out, get them going doing their shopping, because that's just not going to happen right away. But maybe just to get up and wash their face, or just something to get them a wee tiny bit of momentum.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think a lot of people feel like that. It's like a helplessness almost, isn't it, when someone's grieving, because you want to help them, you want to support them, and sometimes when they are at that very early stage, they're maybe still in that denial stage. They're maybe still in that sort of dissociation stage. They don't want to acknowledge it. You know, they're sort of going through the motions, I think is a really big one at the start. I mean, all you can do for people is just show up. Just let them know that you're there, and when they're ready, they'll reach out. Right. You know, I think it's really common that we want to get them up and doing things, but we need to kind of take it at their pace, you know. And I think, like, a lot of people maybe reach out to me and say, oh, will you help my friend? Will you counsel my friend that's going through grief? And I'm like, they need to be at the stage where they want that support and they want to talk about it. You know, there's no use in somebody saying, yeah, go and speak to a counsellor, you know, because if you're not ready for that, it can even be detrimental, you know, to try and force that on somebody, you know, and make them uncomfortable when they're not ready to talk about it. But from like a friends and family standpoint, you know, if you can encourage people, you know, to get up and do things and join in and offer, you know, do you need me to do anything for you, you know, or even sometimes they'll say no when they really do. You know, I think a lot of people always say, oh, let me know if you need anything. Yeah. You know, that's a really, really common one. But if you're in the depths of grief, you're probably not going to reach out to somebody and say, I'm struggling with this, or I really need this, can you do this for me? You know, because I think it's such like an open-ended statement as well. Let me know if you need anything. So they're a bit like, well, what's anything? You know, can you make my dinner for me? Can you babysit my kids? Like all these sorts of things. What can I ask you? What's okay, you know, for me to ask you to do? So sometimes, like when our mum passed away, like really suddenly, people would just come and like drop off food to us, and I'm like, wow, that's so amazing and thoughtful, because sometimes you just don't have the capacity to think, right, what am I making for dinner? Can't be bothered making dinner. Can't be bothered going to the shops. So people just like dropping off food is a big thing. You know, it seems like such a small thing to do, but for somebody that's grieving, it's a huge thing. And if you find somebody is going through a bereavement, they're sort of cutting people out or not really engaging with people, just send them a text. You know, let them know that you're thinking about them, because they probably will be reading texts and things. They might not get back to you, but just knowing that they're not alone and they've not been forgotten and people are thinking about them is a huge thing as well.
Yeah. So anticipating their needs rather than telling them to let you know what they need.
Yeah.
And maybe just acting on them, like dropping off the food and then keeping in touch and just sending a message without expecting anything back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to let them know.
That's really
I'm still here and I'm still thinking about you.
Yeah, sort of limiting our expectations of what we think people should be doing, you know. Because I think sometimes as well, you know, through really well-intentioned words or actions, you know, we can put a bit of pressure on people to be, right, come on, get up, get out, do this, you'll feel better if you do this, you know, and then that can make them feel really guilty to be like, why don't I feel okay doing this? Why am I not really at that stage yet? So yeah, I guess just letting people take it at their own pace, and when they're ready, they'll they'll reach out without having that expectation of, you know, what we think they should be doing or what we think is going to make them feel better. You know, they more often than not, they know themselves what's going to make them feel better in that moment.
And there's stages to grief, aren't there? They might not, I don't know if they do or not, but they might not go in any particular order, but there are like stages to the process of grieving. What are those?
So if we're thinking about, so there's a model of grief called the Kubler-Ross grief cycle, and it's the 5 stages of grief it includes. So the 5 stages of grief, according to that, are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So denial is, you know, that stage of not wanting to accept, not wanting to acknowledge what's happened, that numbness, that dissociation, all these things. Anger, obviously we spoke about that, anger at ourselves, at the world. Bargaining is, you know, the questions, so like the what ifs, you know, what could I have done? What would have happened if this hadn't happened? What does life look like now? Like all these sorts of things. Depression, so that doesn't mean like diagnosed as clinically depressed or anything. It just means, you know, that sort of deep sadness that comes with grief, that the crying, the sadness, the, you know, not feeling up to doing anything, all these sorts of things. And then acceptance is sort of pictured as the end stage, and it's described as moving on or thinking about what does life look like now, making plans for the future. I don't really like the way that's worded in it. I feel like moving on sort of seems like
You're forgetting about
you're moving on, you're forgetting about your person, you're forgetting about your grief. I think moving forward is a better way to put that rather than moving on. But if you were to look at the grief cycle and the 5 stages of grief, it's sort of placed out like that, and the stages are like that in front of you. So anybody looking at that would maybe think, okay, so I started denial, I moved to anger, go through all these, then I reach acceptance, and then everything's fine. I'm not grieving anymore and I feel okay. It's not like that. You know, we can be in multiple stages at the same time. You know, we might be feeling angry, but we might also be, you know, feeling parts of the depression stage at the same time. You know, that's okay. We can go back and forward between stages as well. You know, when I was like in my early 20s, I was like, right, okay, I've reached the acceptance stage about, you know, my dad passing away like 12 years before. But then as time went on, you know, I started to feel that grief again as I got a bit older. So I don't really think the acceptance stage is something we get to and we stay there. You know, I think it's something we can visit, and then, you know, we might return to other stages, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean we're regressing. It doesn't mean we're starting to feel worse again or we're going back to the beginning. You know, I think the stages of the model, we can sort of move in and out of, and we can visit the stages sort of back and forth, I guess, over time. And the stages start to look different over time as well for different people. You know, it's not as linear as it looks when you see it on paper.
Yeah, and I guess like what you were saying there about yourself and your own experience, like when you got to your 20s, then you got to like acceptance, and then you come back out of that again. And I guess like throughout your life, at different events and things like that can then trigger the grief again. If there's maybe something coming up, and then you start to think about that person and how they would have fitted into that event and things like that, then so it is probably, it's like a cycle more than a line.
Absolutely.
More than a timeline.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so like for me personally, like my friends getting married, for example, in their 20s, like watching their dad walk them down the aisle, like that was a really big trigger for me.
Yeah.
So I feel that's maybe when like my grief started to come back, like different stages and things like that. And yeah, 100%. You know, I think triggers are sometimes like a big event like that can trigger it, but sometimes it can be something so small day to day as well. You know, it can be a song, or, you know, smell or a place, you know, somewhere you used to visit with your person that's no longer here can trigger those emotions as well.
Yeah, I actually got it with my granny with a TV show because she just liked to sit and watch the telly for the last few years, and she liked reality shows, and it was when that show Traitors started, and I was like, my granny would have loved this show, and then I was so upset because I was like, she would have really enjoyed this, and it can just be something so trivial like that can kind of set you off in that kind of spiral or cycle.
Absolutely. Yeah, things like that can be such a trigger for people. And it's like when you're not expecting it as well, you know, you're just sitting watching TV and then all of a sudden it's like just hits you sometimes.
So yeah, people, that's normal.
Yeah, 100%.
It's all really normal because we're just human, aren't we? And it's
exactly. Yeah,
we get these big feelings.
Yeah, and I think going through grief or bereavement is such a huge thing. You know, I feel like we really do need to give ourselves that grace and that compassion, you know, to be like, this is a big thing. It's okay that I feel sad. It's okay that I feel angry. It's okay that, you know, this still has an effect on me like 20 years later. It's all okay, you know.
Is there, I know there'll be many people out there that you're saying about the denial. I think we live in this world where everything's so fast paced and there's so many distractions out there to avoid actually facing what we need to be facing. And I guess those distractions would be really good to avoid grief and bereaving somebody that you've lost. So what are kind of the most common sort of coping mechanisms that aren't actually coping, they're more avoidant things that people get caught up in? And is that effective for healing? Or does it come back and catch them?
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head with that. So I think distraction techniques are so common, and it's because our brains don't want to experience that uncomfortable feeling. So we want to do anything else apart from experience that. So for some people that might be like overworking, so like throwing themselves into work 24/7, or gaming is a big one. So like playing PlayStation games. Like for me, when my mum passed away, I downloaded this wee game on my phone, and I honestly I can't even remember what it was. It was kind of like, remember Tetris? The game, I think it was kind of something like that. But over like the first couple of weeks, I was up to like level 3000 or something like that. Like I was just on it constantly because that's what my mind went to. Like I need to be doing something to distract myself here. And obviously I was off work as well, so I threw myself into doing something that had no meaning, but it was taking my brain away for that feeling. So yeah, gaming or like online shopping is a really big one as well. Scrolling on social media, because that's giving us that wee dopamine hit, isn't it? So we're like, something that makes us feel good for a wee second, so we're just throwing ourselves into that. For other people, you know, it might be more sort of maladaptive behaviours. So, you know, they might, you know, start like alcohol use or drug use or, you know, things like that. And that's just their way of coping, you know, and that's can also start the cycle of addiction as well with that, because our brains get so used to, well, when I do that, I don't feel that pain, I don't feel that uncomfortableness. You know, the minute you stop that behaviour, the pain comes back. So they think, nope, I'm going to go back to it, I'm going to do it again. And it can be quite difficult, I think, to break out of that cycle once you get into it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, distraction techniques, they work in the moment, but they're not good for long term, I would say. But there are like positive distractions I think we can use during grief as well. So things like exercise, you know, like going out walking, or like reading, or mindfulness, or like if you've got a hobby you're really interested in, it can be good to do things like that to take your mind off things for a while, because you don't want to be completely consumed by grief. Yeah, so I think if you're doing things like that, but you're also pairing it with, you know, allowing yourself to process the emotions and sit with it sometimes as well, you know, that can be really positive.
And so if people are doing all their distractions and everything, it's ultimately they're still going to need to face it, because it's not going to go anywhere. Like we were saying earlier, the body will just keep a hold of it, and then they'll end up maybe in pain, physical pain, or with an ailment. So how can they start to face those emotions without being totally consumed by them? What would they be doing?
I think it's just about, number one, being kind to yourself, but essentially allowing yourself to sit with grief and just allowing the emotions to come, instead of trying to push them to the back of your mind or pretend they're not happening. Allow them to be. Allow yourself to sit with grief, and yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be, pretty to sit in that grief, but we need to feel to be able to heal. We need to feel our emotions to be able to process them and be able to move through them. Pushing them to the back of your mind or pretending they're not there, like we were just saying there with the distractions, it'll work for short term, but it's not going to facilitate healing. It's not going to make anybody feel any better. So yeah, just allowing yourself to sit with the grief, allowing the emotions to come and go, and finding like coping strategies to help with that as well, and working out what works for you and that.
So sitting, feeling the feelings and the emotions that are coming, letting it pass through, and then maybe taking yourself to do one of your distractions afterwards to break that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So like giving yourself like a wee session of it, so that you're not just sitting there just totally, I don't even know if you'd be able to cope with that amount of pain for too long. Like just a wee bit at a time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think people know themselves what they can handle, how much they can cope with at the moment. So like it's the same in counselling sessions as well. If things are feeling a bit too heavy for a client, it's okay for them to take a wee step back and say, can we take a wee break? Or, is it okay to talk about something else today rather than just grief? Or, that's all okay. That's all part of the process as well.
And talking can really help, but as well at the same time, can't it? If you're talking about how you're feeling or talking about your lost loved one, that can help to move that repressed emotion and energy on a bit to just give you a bit of relief.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important to talk, and it's finding somebody that you feel comfortable with. So whether that is a counsellor, whether that is a grief support group, because again, the support group is really good because it takes that isolation away from that we normally feel when we're grieving or we're going through a bereavement. We feel really lonely. We sometimes feel like nobody understands what I'm going through, but having that group and listening to other people's stories, and that's really healing in itself. I think that takes a lot of the pressure off. Or if you don't want to speak to a counsellor or coach or anything, a friend or a family member or doctor or neighbour or teacher or whatever you feel comfortable with.
And what about writing?
Yeah, so that was going to be my next point. So if talking about it feels too uncomfortable at the moment, then writing about it's an amazing thing. I'll always advocate for journaling with clients. I just think it's just such an amazing tool for helping us process our thoughts and feelings. For me personally, that's how my brain works. Like I need to, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I need to write it down for me to start to relieve that anxiety or that overwhelm or that feeling that's sitting with you sometimes. Writing about it's brilliant. So it helps you process your thoughts and feelings. It gives you clarity. It gives you that release. It's like for me, it's like a relief. It's like a weight off my shoulders after I get it, out my head and onto paper. It's that sort of overwhelming feeling like is taken away. So I'll always like recommend that for clients. And there's so many ways as well that we can go about journaling. Like, so again, for me, I would use a pen and a notepad because that's the way my brain works. But for some people, they hate writing. Or they don't know where to start. I feel that's a big barrier for people, is I don't know how to start it. So sometimes just Googling like journaling prompts can be a really good thing to help them start. And then more often than not, once they actually start writing, they can't stop because everything's just coming out. Yeah, 100%. Sometimes you don't even know like something that was sitting with you until you start writing. You think, oh wow. Yeah, but for some people they don't like that. So I mean, in this day and age, obviously you can get like journaling apps and things like that. So people might prefer that, and they can be good because they can like send you notifications, like reminders to do it, or they can give you prompts and things as well. So that's really good. I always recommend that for teenagers and stuff, because obviously a lot of them don't like writing; they prefer to be on their phone. So they prefer that, or some people use like their notes function in their phone, so they'll just sit and like type it out, which is good because they can use that immediacy. They don't need to wait until they get home to pick up their diary and start writing. They can, you know, just do it in the moment, like just pick up their phone and write. Or some people maybe have like a diary on their laptop or something, they prefer to type it. It's just finding out what works for you. And for some people, I've actually had clients come to me and say that they've used voice notes, so they've like recorded it. Have you? Yeah, and they found that really beneficial. And I'm like, that's amazing, because you're still getting that release, but there's no, I think for a lot of people, when they feel a heavy emotion, they think talking about it, there's that fear of judgment. Sometimes they don't know what to say, they don't know how they're going to be perceived, but saying it out loud to yourself or recording it on your phone, there's no fear of judgment. You know, you can say whatever you like and nobody's going to hear it.
It's such a good wee feature that, like, I noticed that a lot of my kind of thoughts, ideas, or like worries or anything that's bothering me comes often when I'm out walking. If I'm not listening to something, which is also a distraction, then everything starts, like my wee kind of wheels start turning, and I'll just whip the phone out and start recording. Voice recordings. I've got like wee songs and all this, just loads of stuff that if somebody found my phone, they'd be like, what the hell is all that? But I don't even revisit it, but it's just in there because it came in a moment and I was like, oh, I'll maybe go back to this and journal about it or whatever, because I really love journaling. And it's just been so useful, like the recorder. But I had a really good experience with journaling when it came to like the loss of my granny. So this is quite a nice experience, but at the same time it was actually really hard. So I believe personally that when I see a wee robin, that's my granny. So I associate her with a robin, and I just have done since she passed. And I was out in the garden and I was journaling, and I don't actually know why I chose to kind of revisit the pain of losing my granny, but I did. So I started writing, and then this overwhelming sadness came over me, and I was absolutely breaking my heart. I had to come in for the garden, into the kitchen, and this was like such a hard sobbing cry, right? It was so hard, but it was probably for about 2 minutes. Postman came to the door and I was like, no answering that, because I was in here just pouring my guts out. And then I kind of settled down a wee bit in that, and I was like, right, I need to get back out. I need out of this kitchen now. And I went out and I sat down at the journal, and I swear a robin landed on the table right in front of me, and it ended up being such a really special moment, and it was so hard and so sad. But then I was crying and laughing, so it was kind of just a wee mix of everything, and I felt dead relieved after it. And I think it's because I wrote it down, it helped to release this big feeling.
Yeah.
So I just swear by journaling. I think it's like, you obviously like it as well because you said so, but it's so effective.
It really is. It really is. I actually did a wee online course the other night, and it was about writing through grief and just the benefits of it. And I was like, yeah, 100%. It really is so beneficial, and it's a lovely wee story about your granny. Do you know what's so interesting about that? Like how when we're talking about the complexity of grief and emotions, like how, you know, you were really crying there, but then like laughing at the same time, and just, you know, the different things that can hit you. But yeah, 100%. And that's actually how my book came about as well. That started off as a journaling exercise. Right. You know, I was maybe about 8 months maybe after my mum had passed away, I started writing. And I went right the way back to like childhood, about losing my dad, and sort of bringing up things I hadn't thought about for like 25 years, and was just writing about it. And then obviously other losses, and then my mum. And then I thought, if I put all this together, maybe this could help somebody else that's going through this, you know,
Yeah.
to feel a wee bit less alone. Then obviously having like the counselling training, psychology training and stuff as well, I thought I can add that into it, which can hopefully act as a tool, you know, for people who are going through grief. So yeah, that was a really healing experience for me. I think was writing my book as well.
That's amazing. And then you sharing your healing experience with others will help them with theirs.
Hopefully.
Yeah. What's your book called again?
Guided by Grief.
And where can you get the book from?
So it's on Amazon.
Right,
so you can get it on Amazon.
I'll add the link for your book under the description.
Oh, perfect.
So that if anybody's looking for it, that's where you'll find it.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think pets can be a really useful thing as well for people, you know, when we're talking about support. A lot of people find if you don't have a pet, this might sound different, but people like to sometimes talk to their pets rather than talk to people. I get, you know, just when we're talking about the journaling and taking out that like fear of judgment, you know, like the voice notes, for example. Some people prefer to like talk to their pets. But I found personally as well, so my wee dog was an amazing support to me like during my grief, and I think they just know like something's not right with you. They can sense emotions, you know. So he's glued to me anyway, like he is so stuck to me normally, but even more so when I was going through that grief, like he was just by my side all the time and just cuddling in, and you know, when spending time with pets and actually petting pets is another thing that releases a happy chemical in our brain, so it releases the oxytocin in our brain as well. So that can be really beneficial for people if they have pets during time of loss as well.
When people are kind of getting to that stage in the grieving cycle, we'll call it, because it is never ending, that they may be feeling ready to start engaging with life again and stepping into their sort of new normal. How can they do that without getting wrapped up in feelings of guilt?
I think it's honestly just about taking it one day at a time and taking it at your own pace, you know, and taking that pressure off yourself to, I should be doing this, or, you know, I must be doing this. Sort of putting that pressure on yourself, I think, can lead to the feelings of guilt and shame and all these feelings that can layer on top of grief, which is already heavy. You know, we don't need feelings of guilt or shame on top of that. You know, just taking it each day, one day at a time, you know, at your own pace. And in my book as well, it talks about having anchors, so we daily anchors that help you feel grounded each day. So again, that's going to look different for each person, but you know, it can be something like going a wee walk around the block, or listening to your favourite song, or doing like a 3-minute meditation or breathing exercise, or something as simple as having a cup of tea at the same time each morning in your favourite mug. You know, just something like that that you've got to look forward to, that's going to help you feel grounded in that moment. And then over time, it will become easier to integrate other things, but don't rush it, you know, take it at your own pace. It's important.
And when the time's right, you'll just know when you can take on a wee bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like going back to work and things like that, it's a big thing for people. That's why I want to get into workplaces and organisations, and you know, getting into the sort of grief education side of it, like educating managers and how to support people that are coming back after a bereavement. You know, because for a lot of places it's maybe, you know, 1 or 2 weeks bereavement leave, and then it's straight back to work. And you know, grief doesn't end because you need to go back into the office, or, you know, it doesn't work like that. So trying to navigate your heavy emotions along with trying to navigate getting back into work is a lot, you know. So I think having that support in place for people is really, really important.
Yeah, that's just, I was in a workplace and I lost one of my cousins, and I was like, I actually need to go home. And I remember she said to me, right, you've got 1 day off.
1 day?
I get 1 day off the following day.
Oh my God.
And I was like, right. And I was like, I'll not be back. I'm not going back there. And I didn't.
See how easy that is though for workplaces and organisations to to lose staff though, you know, over absolutely no compassion. And I think that's then going back to like, they need to be educated in how to support people, but also what are like workplace policies and things like that on bereavement leave. You know, one day do they expect you to go back to work the following day and be okay and be able to do your job? And you know, for people that maybe have a job of supporting others as well, you know, like when my mum passed away, like I work for a counselling organisation, so they were really understanding. And they gave me a few months off, and then I did like a phased return, which was super helpful. So like going back like 2 days a week and then saying, okay, is that manageable? Do you need to go down to 1, or can you manage 3? Or like sort of lots of check-ins, which I think is really, really important as well. But like for my sister and brother, you know, it was a case of like a week or 2 and then it was back to work, and you're like, how do you expect people to function, you know, going through something like that? So absolutely, there needs to be more compassion, more understanding from managers and workplaces, I think, in schools as well. You know, I think schools have really came on leaps and bounds from like when I was at school. You know, they do have like wellbeing supports and things like that in place for people, but I think even giving them that training, teachers that training as well, you know, if a child's going through a bereavement and they maybe want to speak to their teacher about it, you know, giving them that education and training in it as well, super important.
Because that would be one of their trusted adults, wouldn't it? So they should be able to go to them, and the teacher should be able to respond to them in a place where they feel equipped for it.
Yeah,
that's important.
Absolutely, yeah, because they probably spend more time out of their day at school than they do anywhere else. So especially like in primary school, you know, that teacher is like a main adult in their life, isn't it, really? And if they've got a good relationship with that teacher, then fantastic. But if that teacher then feels uncomfortable speaking about grief, or, you know, doesn't know how to respond or, you know, support them, then, you know, that can feel difficult for the teacher and for the student as well.
Yeah, so that would totally be such a valuable thing, like within a school, for the teachers to have.
Yeah.
Good for you. I love that you're advocating that. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
We are talking about like acceptance. You can still like keep a connection with your loved one, even though their presence isn't here. And there's wee things that you can do to keep that connection, the connection present in your life, to help you throughout your days, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really personal for each individual person as well. You know, for like for example, some people feel it really comforting to, you know, go to their loved one's grave, or if they have like a wee memorial for them somewhere, they like to go to those places to honour them, and that's really comforting for them to do that. For some people that's too hard and they don't want to go there at all. And that's okay. You know, they're both okay. So it's 100%, you know, whatever works for you in that moment. You know, sometimes it's doing like little rituals, like wee things to remember them. So like on their anniversaries or birthdays or things like that. So our dad used to take us on this walk as kids, and on the 4th of January every year, on that's his anniversary, like I would go and do that walk, and that was really peaceful for me. That was really comforting. I actually live next to that walk now, so I do it every month, which is it's still really peaceful for me to do. I still love to do that walk. Like on my mum's birthday, we get like a group of us together, like friends and family, and you know, we go for lunch and raise a wee glass, and that's what we do. So that's like our wee rituals. But that's not to say you need to do things like that either. You know, for some people it just feels too hard, you know, or they don't want to do it. They just want the day to come and go, and that's okay as well. I think the build up for those big days can feel like a lot as well. Like for the firsts are always a big thing, you know, first anniversary, first birthday without them, first Christmas without them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All these things can feel a lot, and I think the build up to that day is often, in my experience anyway, is worse than the day itself, you know, because you're worrying so much about it.
The anticipation.
The anticipation's worse than the day. The days, well, I've found was more manageable than the weeks or months before it. But yeah, sorry, I feel like I've been off on a wee tangent here, but yeah, again, it's just such a personal thing on how you want to keep that connection. You know, for some people, it might carry a photo of them like in their purse, or you know, wear their jewellery. So I've got like my grand's ring I wear all the time. I've got my mum's necklace. I gave her on my wedding day. I wear that all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, or for some people, it's just they've just got their own memories that they like to sit with and think about as well.
And then like I've got the reconnection with the birds, like the robins. So when I'll see that, I'll be like, "Oh, hi, Gran."
Yeah,
Whatever. It's nice to have like a wee thing like that, isn't it?
yeah.
I feel like the more you're aware of, the more you're open and receptive to wee things like that, the more of them you get as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I always see wee signs now, and it's things I would never have thought of before, you know, like a wee feather, or I always see 11:11 on the clock, or 22:22. Like I remember, like when my mum first passed away, I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and every time I looked at the clock, it was always 22:22, and I was like, I wonder what that means. That's like a sign. Or if I looked at my phone, it was always 22:22, and I always screenshotted it. So I've just got loads of screenshots of my screensaver with 22:22 on it, or 11:11.
Yeah, it becomes meaningful for you, and then again, it's just like it's keeping that connection there with your loved one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like you're saying, it's just so personal to the individual, but there can be all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have that.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to share them either. You could just keep it as like a wee personal thing, just for yourself, and be like, "Oh, I see it."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of people do that as well.
I think there's anything that you would still like to cover?
I think really the main takeaway is really just being kind to yourself, and just knowing that everything you're experiencing is normal, and it's all part of the process. You know, I think sometimes when we experience bereavement, especially traumatic bereavement, you know, our brains go into survival mode, you know, so in that moment, make sure you're surviving, you know, make sure you're taking care of the basics, making sure you're staying hydrated, make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure you're eating. If you don't have much of an appetite, which a lot of people don't when they're grieving, you know, little and often, you know, if you're eating something, if you can make it healthy, amazing, you know, like a bit of fruit or a smoothie, get some nutrients in you to you know, benefit you as well. But if you're eating something, then great, you know. Exercise is another big one as well, you know, making sure you're getting a bit of fresh air or a bit of exercise. I feel that's a really good coping strategy for when we experience any heavy emotion, just no matter what that looks like for you. If that's like going for a walk, going for a run, going to the gym, dancing, boxing, judo, yoga, whatever it is, you know, because when we're moving our body, we're sort of getting rid of that nervous energy that we have inside us as well. So again, I'll always advocate for movement and exercise as well for people who are struggling. And also when we exercise, you know, we create those wee happy chemicals in our brain. So in the midst of grief and bereavement, you know, hopefully that has a wee impact on us as well. Sleep is another big one as well. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. I know it's a struggle for a lot of people. If you are struggling with sleep, just make sure you're lying down and closing your eyes. So as long as you're resting, you know, no matter what time of the day it is, if you're resting, then brilliant. You know, if you're struggling to sleep, going back to the journaling again, you know, keep your wee journal beside your bed, and before you lie down, write about your day. You know, because those thoughts and feelings and things that feel overwhelming, that, you know, when you lie down at night and the lights are off, you know, there's nothing to distract you there, you know, so all the thoughts and feelings come to us at night time, don't they? So write about them, get them out your head and onto paper. That will help you switch off and relax a wee bit, and hopefully make sleep feel a wee bit better. Or put on like sleep meditations is a good one as well for night time. I know the Calming app, people have found that really beneficial.
Do you know, Yoga Nidra is a really nice one. Have you done that?
No, I haven't.
So it's called yoga, but essentially you're lying down. You can do them for sleep, and it's more like a meditation, but it takes your awareness onto different body parts and fairly quickly. So it'll be like thumb index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky, and it will move you through it, and you just go through all these different parts, and it really, really relaxes your body. And I don't think I've ever made it to the end of one without falling asleep.
That's
And
amazing.
There's so many on YouTube and that, they're brilliant.
Yeah, there's yeah, so that sort of sounds like a technique I'll tell clients about as well. It's like progressive muscle relaxation. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Is that when you're
really
like
similar.
tensing and then letting go?
Yeah, so you're just lying in bed and you sort of start one end of your body and work your way down. So like starting at your head, so you maybe tense for like 3 or 4 seconds and then release, and then just moving down shoulders, arms, chest, stomach. People have found that really effective. I've found as well to help their body relax, because again, going through loss, grief or bereavement, we hold a lot of tension in our body as well sometimes, don't we? So just that not being able to switch off and relax can have a really heavy impact on our sleep. So doing things like that can be really good as well. Listening to nature sounds as well is really beneficial. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but our brains are wired to, when we hear like a calming nature sound, so like birds chirping, for example, so that automatically resets our nervous system. And that goes back to like our ancestors. So if they heard birds singing outside, they would know there's no danger present, so they would be able to switch off and feel relaxed and calm and not feel anxious. So our brains still look out for that. So if we hear birds, then it helps us feel calm. So that's a really good like nature sound to listen to at night time as well.
It's amazing how we're still like wired the way our ancestors were, wasn't it? Like, and that's because the birds come out and the predators aren't around. Yeah, I knew that. That's so interesting.
It is.
And do you know what? See the boys, my 2 wee sons, it's funny because babies just love nature sounds. Like when they were smaller and going to bed, it would be rain sounds they'd like to listen to. So they love rain sounds. And another one was like sounds of the waves, which is also kind of like rain sounds, but it's just so soothing. And I think it is just because probably just like what you said, like whenever you've got time to sit and listen to sounds like that, you know that everything's kind of all right if you're sitting doing nothing. Yeah,
it's so calming, and that's my 2 favourites as well, is like listening to water. So like rain or waves is my favourite. Like I could sit on the beach all day and just listen to the sounds of the waves coming in. It's so calming. But yeah, again, just working out what works for you, what helps for you, because everybody's different. But yeah.
And just knowing that it's never something that's going to completely go away, but you learn to live with it and throughout different periods of your life. Like a wave. You did a wave in one of your recent posts actually. It was like a wee slide post, but it was pictures of waves. But I guess the grief will come like a wave and go down like a wave, but then another wave will come, but you just need to know that it's going to come down again, and you just learn to live with it. It's never really going to go away, but it's a new normal.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that analogy that grief comes in waves. I use that quite a lot on posts because it's such a great visualization, you know, and you know, sometimes it will feel like stormy and the waves will feel, you know, really big and, you know, you've got no control over it. But if we try and fight those waves, we're going to end up drowning, you know. But if we just relax and, you know, let the waves come, you know, lie on our back and just, you know, float through, then it's stop actually fighting against it. It becomes so much easier to navigate the waves.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's been amazing and so interesting. And I think, like we had said at the start, grief touches everybody. And I guess it's just understanding these things and having this knowledge will help you to support your loved ones, and also just to remind yourself to be gentle and kind to yourself. And know that everything throughout your whole grief process is normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's it. And thank you so much for having me. It's been so lovely chatting with you today.
Thank you too. And where can anybody find you that's looking for you on social media or online? How can anyone that's looking for you find you?
So on Instagram or Facebook, so just be Heather Higgins Grief Support. If anybody is looking for support, I do have space for new clients, and my grief group is monthly as well, and that's online. And my one-to-one sessions are online as well, so people can join from their own home, and if they want to come in their pajamas with a cup of tea, that's absolutely fine, whatever makes people feel comfortable.
And I'll put all your information down in the description, so if anyone's looking for Heather, that's where she'll be.
Awesome.